Cambodia and Thailand have one of the world's most tense borders. In fact, in 2011, they almost went to war over this temple right here, Preah Vihear. So today, we're gonna find out how geography is pushing Cambodia and Thailand closer to war. But first, if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. The longer the border between two countries is, the more likely it is that there will be disputes over exactly where the border is located. And this is especially true when that border goes through a dense jungle or is along a river that changes course frequently. And this is the case for Thailand and Cambodia. They share a whopping 800 kilometers border, which makes it the second longest land border in mainland Southeast Asia after the border between Myanmar and China. And the border between Thailand and Cambodia is not a straight line. It has many twists and turns and cuts deep into both countries. The Thai-Cambodian border dispute is largely over this area here, Preah Vihear Temple. Now, the reason why it is so hard to tell who owns this temple is because the border between Thailand and Cambodia is very ambiguous. In fact, the entire border is a colonial creation. This means that before the 19th century, there really wasn't any border between what is now Thailand and Cambodia. Instead, there was an Anglo-French condominium, essentially a zone of shared control between British and French influence. But once the region became independent, the two powers each wanted the temple within their own borders. To make things even more complicated, no one knows exactly where the border was in the past. Sometimes the border was along the crest of the hills, sometimes it was along the river valleys, and this led to a lot of ambiguity and disputes. And while the temple itself doesn't have much strategic value, it does control this important road here. Now, despite these disputes, the two countries have generally maintained a peaceful border. That is until 2008 when fighting broke out over this temple. Since then, the Thai-Cambodian border has been one of the most dangerous places in the world, with frequent clashes and skirmishes occurring at least 3 times per year. And just last month, 3 Cambodian soldiers were killed in an ambush by Thai forces. Now, all of these clashes and fighting are bad enough, but they also have real strategic implications. For example, the fighting has led both sides to build up military bases along the border. Now, if the two sides ever get into a larger conflict, then this would allow them to launch attacks into each other's territory. And with the presence of thousands of soldiers on both sides, it only takes one miscalculation for things to spiral out of control. But why do these clashes keep happening? Well, let's start with natural resources. Oil, gas, and forests are incredibly valuable, especially given the current global energy crisis. And these resources often cross borders, meaning that 2 or more countries may exploit them together. And this is the case for Thailand and Cambodia. Just last week, for example, the two countries agreed to work together to exploit a joint oil field off the coast of their shared maritime border. But it's not always so harmonious. Both countries have laid claim to this area of the Gulf of Thailand, and this has led to increased naval activity and tensions. There are also reports of illegal logging and fishing across the border, which further leads to conflict. The fight over Preah Vihear is also likely driven by natural resources, since the area around the temple contains potentially lucrative mineral deposits. Then we have nationalism. Nationalists on both sides love to emphasize the history of their country to build national unity and pride. And in the case of both Thailand and Cambodia, this often involves claims to historical territories and regions. For example, the Thai national narrative emphasizes the former glories of the Kingdom of Thailand, while the Khmer Rouge use maps like this during their rule, showing territorial claims to much of present-day Thailand. In this environment, it's not surprising that the Preah Vihear Temple dispute has become such a sensitive issue. After all, the temple was originally built by the Khmer Empire, which preceded both modern Thailand and Cambodia. And many Cambodians feel that the temple is rightfully theirs. Finally, there's the question of strategy. Controlling the border can help countries exert power and influence over their neighbors. And this is especially true in a place like Southeast Asia, which is full of strategic choke points. For example, Thailand wants to control the border with Cambodia in order to project power into the Mekong River. The Mekong is one of the most important rivers in Southeast Asia, providing water and livelihoods for tens of millions of people. But it also contains important waterways and canals that could be used to transport goods. If Thailand can control the river, then it can exert more influence over its neighbors, including Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Of course, this is all hypothetical, but it shows how controlling the border with Cambodia is in Thailand's interest. For Cambodia, the situation is slightly different. Its primary concern is security. Before the 1970s, Cambodia had relatively good relations with its neighbors, thanks to a policy of neutrality. However, this changed with the rise of the Khmer Rouge, who quickly turned the country into an agrarian dictatorship. This led to the Cambodian genocide, which killed an estimated 2 million people. Eventually, the Vietnamese invaded Cambodia in 1979 to take down the Khmer Rouge, and this led to decades of civil war and instability. Today, however, Cambodia is much more open to the world and has good relations with many of its neighbors. This means that its main security concerns lie outside of the region. For example, Cambodia is a major recipient of aid and investment from China, while the US maintain a significant military presence in Thailand. As such, controlling the border with Thailand allows Cambodia to prevent foreign powers from entering its territory. So due to natural resources, nationalism and strategy, the border between Cambodia and Thailand has been a source of tension since the 19th century. But is there going to be a war between the two countries? Well, probably not in the near future. Even though there are frequent clashes along the border, these are limited in scope and rarely involve heavy weapons. There are also checks and balances that prevent the conflicts from escalating too much. For example, both countries are members of ASEAN, meaning that they have to maintain good relations with each other. Additionally, the presence of hundreds of international border markers helps to demarcate the border and prevent misunderstandings. Finally, both countries have shown restraint when it comes to engaging in large-scale warfare. This is partly because both countries have experienced the horrors of war in the past. Cambodia suffered under the Khmer Rouge, while Thailand was occupied by neighboring Burma during World War II. And as such, neither country wants to go to war with the other. However, in the long term, it's difficult to say whether the border will remain stable. In a recent survey of Thai and Cambodian experts, for example, nearly half believe that there would be another border clash within 2 years. This is because geography keeps tensions high between the two countries. Their long and ambiguous border means that there will always be areas of contention, especially along the border with Preah Vihear. Moreover, both countries are rich in natural resources, which creates competition and incentives to lay claim to each other's territory. Finally, nationalist sentiments and rivalries with neighboring countries mean that neither side is willing to back down. It's easy to forget that pre-colonial times, there wasn't even a border between Cambodia and Thailand. The border between the two countries is essentially a colonial creation that came about when France and Britain divided up Southeast Asia between them. This means that there are few geographic barriers that prevent the two countries from extending their borders even further, and it's possible that future conflicts could lead to a redrawing of the border. If that happens, it won't be the first time either. After all, the border between Thailand and Cambodia isn't the only border in the region that's being contested. In fact, there are dozens of territorial disputes throughout Southeast Asia, most notably in the South China Sea. These disputes are often over small islands and reefs, but they can also involve larger areas of land. In some cases, these disputes have led to violence, such as the 2012 standoff between China and the Philippines. But in general, the countries of Southeast Asia have done a good job of managing their territorial disputes. This is largely because they have so many other issues to deal with. For example, all of the countries in Southeast Asia are still dealing with the aftermath of colonialism. Many of them are also trying to industrialize and develop their economies. And as such, they don't want to risk going to war over territorial disputes. That being said, it's possible that this will change in the future. As Southeast Asian countries become more powerful and wealthy, they may become more aggressive towards their neighbors. This is already happening to a certain extent. For example, China has been increasingly assertive in the South China Sea in recent years. This is likely due to the fact that China is becoming more confident in its own power. The same may eventually happen with Thailand and Cambodia. As both countries become wealthier and more powerful, they may become more willing to use force to achieve their goals. In conclusion, the border between Thailand and Cambodia is one of the most dangerous and volatile borders in the world. It's easy to see why when you consider the long and contentious history between the two countries, their competing claims to natural resources, and the strategic importance of the border. While there hasn't been a war between the two countries yet, it's possible that this could change in the future. If that does happen, it would be a tragedy. Not only would it cause immense human suffering, but it would also distract both countries from their larger strategic goals. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail and the two countries will be able to peacefully manage their border disputes. Now check out the geography of war or click this other video instead. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time.